Shelley here with Serious Stylist Moon, and you'll probably see the title that got me to uh,
This
press
drone
record,
filmed flying near Aalborg
and
Airport in
that
northern Denmark
is
last night.
basically the discussion about satellites um,
This drone
and the
filmed
Civil
flying
War
near
cloak.
Aalborg Airport.
So I'm gonna address both. They're not related. Haven't yet heard the NATO. I know there was a big 50 minutes video. I'm dealing with BNTI myself, so like, hey, got me some slack. But um, yeah, Moon 23 degrees, Scorpio. This is a Jupiter day, Jupiter hour, Venus day. If the Moon wasn't in Scorpio, and Mars wasn't squaring Pluto, that would be talismanic materia, not with Jupiter in the 8th house, but from other places in the world. Because Mars is still squaring Pluto, um, very powerful releases, profound emotional purges that are needed to make way for transmutation, transformation, and understandings. Um, let's talk about the targeting of NATO satellites. Um, Now, whether it's true or not, this adds something to a problem that a lot of people have been dealing with, and that's surveillance. It seems that the, them killing each other um, is basically also killing the satellites, the surveillance, and that is a Uranian aspect to the civil war, the global war, but also um, the aircraft war. Um, a lot of people have been dealing with a lot of troubles with the satellites. I mean, if there's a true crime case, you won't see anybody opens a satellite, even though they would be seen. There are levels of footages that basically can find every single kidnapped person, missing person in the world. Um, but that those are not being used, of course, in favor of humanity, and that the infrastructure itself is being destroyed in the air is very exciting news, very challenging news. There are going to be ups and downs to that. There's going to be internet suddenly falling. We already had that with the wires cutting. I think it was already a year ago. It was at the airport when it happened. I was escaping that human trafficking apartment, sleeping at the airport, and then waking up from astral rape while trying to make it look normal. And sirens from the Houthis going into the shelter. I think I think I think Rockefeller Astral Leaks has a clip for me there. And I said, "Oh shit! Oh fuck! Oh fuck!" um, but yeah, now let's talk a little bit about civil war. And from what I saw, it's exactly the same. There's people are having slave farms, convincing everybody that that's the way to go. Now, I want to talk about something because here in Israel we also have Uranus in Gemini now, and the 7th of October was basically wouldn't have been a possibility if there wasn't been close to slavery working conditions where local people could not, except for the land, the people that they didn't own the land, and that's the point. That's how invasion happened. It was basically Chinese territory. The 100 years where Israel because that would be 100 years where the Zionist settlement or even the British Mandate would have right over the land, and then they have a contract. It's called chachira, which is basically the rent, the right to have a country there. For example, with the Dead Sea, a lot of problems because they want to use a method from Estonia to bring in the oil, but that method is considered not preferred. Like even if we do oil, that is considered not preferred, and that depends on who owns the right over the land. And basically, what happened is Hamas, whether together with informants, made ritual satanic abuse, ritual human sacrifice on the farmland that was already infested with slavery, kidnappings, sexual boundary violations before that, to sustain almost slavery conditions in order to export goods. Now, I remember 2005, 2006, my mom was a writer, so we sold the book door to door because we didn't want to be exploited by. They wouldn't do anything, okay? Like they wouldn't do anything to market the book. Um, so we went and did it ourselves, and the people in the settlements were telling us, "Hey, we have Palestinian people coming to work for us." That was before the Hitnet coup, before they evacuated 1.5 million people, and that was, when we asked about the working conditions, they told us we have to be eligible for export. The people that were living on they had a big mansion and so on, but a lot of everybody knew that this would happen as a lot of bombs and so on. But also the people that were in those mansions, they would work the land. I mean, it's easy to wake up when there's a bomb. 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, like I was combating being psychically targeted for 2 consecutive nights, so it's easy for me to be awake at 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, and what happens is that, except for them, there would be foreign people on the land, and local people couldn't work because the conditions were too harsh physically for them to produce. Now, mind you, Israel has mandatory army service. They still volunteer in picking up fruits in the north. That's that's not that's how my father met and my mother were. That's not really kibbutz gadot. Yeah, that's not really. Yes, and then they tried to have olives, and they didn't know what to do with them. So that story runs. The divorce when I was 2 years old after 14 years of marriage, but the story runs in the family. But that's not the farming conditions, and this is important to understand because that dumb fuckery, export conditions, not enough. I mean, me and my mom, we sold my mama's book, that we got some nice peppers, some giant peppers, um, that was supposed to go to export, and oh my gosh, do you see the difference? I think Togo has this problem, but with gas. It's given Emir Costa Rica. However, when it comes to um, having when it comes to appeasing the conditions to not be invaded and conquered by a Genghis Khan or something, those farming conditions were not standing the test of time. And what happened 7th of October, false flag, informants together with Hamas do things that if anybody would see them, including a Palestinian person, they would say, kill all of them. um, there were people committing suicide just from seeing the sights. But then, of course, those informants did a dirty job, and they were invading Chinese territory, doing the job, then evacuating also Gaza, preparing the ground to harvest some oil, and Israel being litigated for genocide. And, and Palestinians should really listen carefully, because 24 years, it's Nazi o'clock. They're the next flag. They're the next flag. Um, that's literally what I said in the 7th of October. I said, well, Israel is passing the torch. Nazi Germany passed the torch to Israel. Israel is passing the torch to Palestine. And um, it's horror, but for that to not be true, we actually need to abolish slavery. Now, I know that farming is difficult. Let me tell you something. I lived on a soil, okay? Rented an apartment. There was nothing done with the soil. It was a pile of trash. And so I decided, instead of fighting with the neighbors, I will just start growing things on that soil so they wouldn't throw any more trash. Then there was a problem with the water. No problem. They forested the Sahara. I could forest my backyard. And then I did rewilding in the fort, in the yard, which I guess, yes, well, I don't know. And then I discovered that was a human trafficking place, and they designed me to do other things there. Um, so I had to stop investing in the land altogether. And if you think that my problems are different to the problems of people who get the right to work the land, you're fucking wrong. They want traditional American family. They want your wife being traded, trafficked to some Epstein ring, you being the handler, you being extorted by trafficking your child making you feel, having a handler making you feel comfortable raping your child to the face of the camera, and all that being exposed whenever they're comfortable with, while they do the very same things so that they can get to mine the resources on your land. And they would put gang stalkers from all over the place until they get you homeless. They start killing dogs in Oregon. Bought a talisman from a company in Oregon, so I get a lot of news about Oregon. Started killing dogs. Why? Because the dogs safeguard the land. So if we tend to the problem of human trafficking, of targeted individuals, MK Ultra, MK often, ritual abuse, it's not satanic panic, and we stop putting our trust in the same old people that were tortured themselves, not about shame and blame. They were tortured, they perpetuated torture, they're not satanic abuse survivors because they attack other people than those who attacked them. If we don't tend to that, no civil war will help. If we do tend to that, we basically did the job that the civil war was supposed to do. But to think that you could get away with slavery, and I know how hard it is to work the land. I picked up solutions from reforesting the Sahara for the water solutions. Then they spray the soil. My astrology colleague, Krasia Tasu in Bulgaria, she lives in one of the most amazing places. People come from, when Sirius rises, right next to her, people come from all over the world to watch Sirius rise. Amazing soil. When I was in Bulgaria, it was 2007. You go to these rural villages, the water is freezing cold. So you don't even put on a shampoo, but you don't need to because your hair comes so smooth because there's no pollution to the water. I don't know if it's still that way. The stream is weak, of course, because it's the mountains. But They began to spray the soil. Tomatoes wouldn't grow. She had to grow everything. It was such a beautiful place, such a beautiful soil. They sprayed the soil. She had to grow everything covered. All of her food. And maybe that's preparing us for space, okay. However, when I was thinking about tomatoes and say, oh, well, maybe they were too sensitive. No. When there was 7th of October, 2 weeks I wasn't on the property. The only thing that survived were the tomatoes. And it was summer. In Israel, October is summer, sometimes hotter than the summer. If there is slavery, there is human trafficking. If there is slavery, there is kidnapping. If there is slavery, there is child sex offenders. There is slavery, there are trafficking rings. If there is slavery, the American dream is being rigged off from the bone marrow. You can't, and I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is if you don't find a good solution to work the soil so you wouldn't have to water the soil. Now, if you have to grow everything inside, then you have to water the soil. And people will have to grow everything covered. They will not be able to have farmland. 7 years from now, people will not have farmland. They will have covered structures that grow agriculture. It's sad because we can reforest the Sahara. And in those conditions, yes, farmers feels like it's a 22 catch, and they're not wrong. It's by design, designed to make it impossible for you to make a viable income. And you will probably not own the land anymore. Those of you that still own the land, farmers in the United States can't plant their own seeds. You grow a tomato, it has seeds, you want to replant the seeds, no, you need to have an approval to replant your own fucking seeds. And they make it impossible. They genuinely, by design, make it as impossible as they can possibly make it to have the working conditions and produce enough food and pick up the food on time and drive the food to where it needs to be packed and delivered without slavery conditions. Whether it's slavery, or it's working conditions that are similar to slavery, those things are absolutely true. And yet when people succumb to that, there's kidnapping, there's rape, there's trafficking, there's child trafficking, and there goes the land. Somebody is a targeted individual. The police don't help. Not only that they don't help, they are the marked person. How do you think these people feel in relation to anything, government, authority? Instead of recreating or building faith in the authority, what's created is further radicalization. Now, the minute somebody had sexual boundary violation, man or woman, child or adult, against them, faith in humanity eradicated. So, yes, I totally understand the problems of the farmers. They say, how can they do that without slavery working conditions? It's like, well, people, they can give people food, they can give people maybe shelter, but then the working conditions are impossible. And they work with, okay, that's to say, it's kind of like what was in Israel. They work with, okay, the landowners, they work with the slaves. Maybe some aristocrats sit and do other things, but mostly they work with the slaves. But all of that is not going to be enough. In fact, I see superfood, powdered lemon. Everything is coming, the food is coming in powder. Now, what's a nice attribute of powder? You could take any powder, give it some nice coloring, okay? And that's basically food. Now, people might consume that even. Some of the powder they want because it's expensive, but some of the powder is meant to poison the superfood. Trust me, I'm an aromatherapist. I've seen stuff. So, is it civil war o'clock? It's civil war o'clock. Are the farmers right? The farmers right. Is it possible to have slavery conditions, working condition? No, it's not possible. Is there a technology that doesn't necessitate powdering things and allowing to grow food that is actually nourishing? Absolutely. It's called Stop Spraying the Sky. By the way, Africa has lovely soil, but has been getting some of those pesticides that kill the soil. You know what they use the nitrogen for? You know the sacropods, the tiny gas chambers? They promise euphoric death. And when a death cult promise you euphoric death, I don't know. But at least they're killing one another's satellites. That's what I'm saying.